Hello, and welcome to the Unified Security Team's Enablement Training. This is the Advanced Malware Protection course. My name is Christopher Hoff. I'm an Advanced Malware Security Engineer in the Northeast for SourceFire. You're watching Module 2 out of 9, where we're going to focus on identifying and qualifying opportunities, as well as positioning the Advanced Malware Protection solution for success. Just as a quick reminder, at the end of this module, we're going to have a short quiz, 15 to 20 questions that you'll be able to take. So in this module, we're going to focus on the problems that the market is seeing out there with regard to advanced malware, how the SourceFire Advanced Malware Protection platform can solve those problems as well as bring added value to our customers. So by the end of this module, you should be able to successfully identify the target audience for the Advanced Malware Protection solution, be able to qualify opportunities, and be audible ready when talking about the advanced malware value proposition. In order to deal with their biggest challenges, customers need a more simple, scalable, and threat-focused security model. The key to this new model is to ensure visibility across the entire attack continuum while delivering simplicity and scale. Think of it another way. We need a holistic view of what's happening on our network to address security before an attack, during an attack, and after an attack. Before an attack, customers need to know what they're defending. You need to know what's on your network in order to be able to defend it. Things like devices, operating systems, services, applications, data that users are accessing. They tend to implement access controls to enforce policy and block applications, as well as overall access to assets. However, policy and controls are only a small piece of what's needed. They may reduce the surface area of an attack, but there will always still be holes that the bad guys can find. And we all know that the attackers don't discriminate. They will find any gap in defenses and exploit it to achieve their objectives. During an attack, we have to have the best detection available. Once we detect an attack, we need to be able to block it rapidly and defend the entire environment. Inevitably, attacks will be successful, and customers need to be able to determine the scope of the damage, contain the event, and remediate the issues to bring operations back to normal as quickly as possible. They also need to address a broader range of attack vectors with solutions that operate everywhere the threat can manifest itself, such as on the network, on your endpoints and mobile devices, as well as virtual environments. The problem is with today's threat landscape full of all this advanced malware and zero-day exploits, point-in-time technologies by themselves don't work. As a matter of fact, we're finding that it only adds to the complexity of the problem, creating more gaps, not to mention making it harder to scale in line with today's new and changing business models. To that end, when we talk to customers, we want to make sure that they understand that we're doing something that is in fact unique. So we've developed the short pitch at the top of the slide. SourceFire's Advanced Malware Protection is the only solution that goes beyond point-in-time detection. We leverage big data analytics and continuous analysis to detect malware, confirm an infection, analyze its behavior, trace its path, and remediate targets while reporting on the impact regardless when the file was determined to be malware. That's completely different than what most of our customers know today. As a matter of fact, it's changing the game because if you know, we're answering the questions for what if something happens, or when something happens, what now? So let's think about it from the standpoint of the traditional security tools that we have out there. They tend to operate in silos. our firewalls and our VPNs and our access controls are hardening the defenses before an attack. Our antivirus and our IPSs and all those other tools, as well as our spam and web filters, are designed to mitigate an active attack. But we don't spend a lot of time figuring out how to effectively deal with the after effects of an attack. So when an attack gets through, our customers tend to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what happened. Because these are in silos, like I said before, we're creating complexity, and complexity is the bane of security. So what we need to do is we need to bring this together so that we can have that holistic view of what's happening before, during, and after an attack. Now, don't take my word for it. The Verizon 2013 data breach report is full of examples of companies who have spent a lot of time and effort setting up their defenses using these same technologies, but still getting breached. When I talk to customers, this topic comes up. One of the things that we bring up is that if your antivirus and your firewalls, your spam filters all worked at 100%, none of these breaches from 2013, or really no breaches, would have ever happened. So we need to think about the problem differently. So what's going on when we talk about this? So we talk about point in time and continuous analysis. What does that really mean? When we think about a point in time product like an antivirus or even those new sandboxing technologies, what they're doing is they're essentially making a binary decision, yes or no, whether a file is good or bad, and then it lets it through or blocks it. There is no in between with these products. As a matter of fact, with modern malware, the malware authors know that these products are in place, so they implement evasion techniques such as sleeping technologies. So the malware will download, but even if it's activated in the sandbox, it's not going to do anything. It may not do anything until the third or fourth time that it's been run, or it may have a time code on it that once it's downloaded, it will wait a certain amount of days, weeks, or even months before activating. Because of polymorphism, no attack is going to be the same twice. As a matter of fact, if you have two computers that download the same piece of malware at the same time, programmatically those two pieces of malware are going to be different, but they're going to achieve the same goal. Signature-based products such as antivirus just can't. They try to deal with it, but their effectiveness is not as high as it should be. What does that mean to our customers? Well, it means that with all the defenses that they're putting in place, they're still getting infected, and they're blind to the entry point. They don't know where the malware came from. They have to make assumptions about it, and they don't know if they've remediated the entire problem. By providing continuous analysis, we're able to track a file as it comes into the environment through its entire life cycle, as a matter of fact, through its lineage. If it downloads other files, if it's got a timestamp on it that it's not going to activate until 24 hours later, for example, we can also go back in time to retrospectively change the disposition of that file. So if we were to download malware today and tomorrow it activates and starts acting inappropriately, we will know how it got into our network and we'll be able to block it without having to scan for it again. So what does that look like? This is a snapshot of some user data that we had that shows good files, bad files, and unknown files within an environment. The thing to look at is the diagram on the right. So we've got the red dot, which is the original dropper that came into an environment. The dropper could be something that is perfectly legitimate. It could actually be an exploited version of the Adobe Acrobat Updater or some other updating tool. That dropper, though, starts downloading other files. These files have an unknown disposition. As a matter of fact, in some cases, they may even be perfectly good files. As a matter of fact, a couple years ago, there was a piece of malware out there called Storm that some variants of it downloaded Microsoft patches to essentially protect itself from other malware and other exploits. So malware will do that to essentially throw off the AV scanners. But at some point along the chain, these unknown files may pull down the actual malware payload, or may start acting badly. We need to be able to understand the entire lineage of these files so that we can get back to that original dropper, essentially patient zero, and be able to remediate that. With traditional technologies, if you've got your AV in place, it may detect the malicious payload, but companies will spend a lot of time trying to figure out why the infection keeps coming back. With our solution, we're able to give them that visibility as well as give them the ability to take immediate action. Now, when we talk about taking immediate action, on the left is an image that details the steps an organization would need to undertake to confirm a malware infection, analyze the malware, figure out how far that malware is spread within their organization, and clean it up. Using traditional tools, this process takes a significant amount of time and resources, and it's a skill set that many companies just simply don't invest in. Because of this, many companies just skip some of these steps and end up making assumptions regarding the root cause. When I talk to my customers, I'll start by asking them to describe their process, and as they walk through the process that they go through to remediate malware, I'll start asking the questions from that list on the right, which are difficult for them to answer. It's actually a fairly uncomfortable conversation in some cases. But the benefit is that the conversation helps us discover more about what the customer is doing, as well as it helps the customer realize that they actually have some real pain in this area. Think of it as two-sided discovery. We can then better position the advanced malware protection technology as a way to automate these processes, which has the positive business outcome of saving time and money relative to the analysis. I like to follow up this conversation with asking what other projects the IT group could be focusing on if they get some of this time back, which further reinforces their desire to automate things and save time. When we talk about the solution, we're talking about multiple products that all work together in some fashion and all take advantage of the same collective intelligence on the back end. We've talked about how this gives us visibility across the attack continuum, but from a sales perspective, it also gives us multiple entry points into an opportunity. So if we've got customers who already have the Cisco content security appliances, the ESA and the WSA, our entry point can be the gateway because it's a license add-on. We can then land and expand into the network as well as the endpoints. It's all really going to depend on where the customer is in their need and what they're looking to do. So if we have a customer who is already using the next generation IPS or next gen firewall, maybe we want to start on the network and then kind of work our way out. Or if we're talking to certain groups, which we'll get into, maybe we want to start on the endpoint and work our way out to the network. But the point is that we're giving our sales teams multiple entry points into the customer, and we're giving the customer, if they go either with a single product or with the entire solution, more visibility and more control into the files and the network traffic that's going across their network. So how do we decide where we're going to go? I had mentioned about if customers who already own certain products, but in the course of conversation, if a customer is just talking about being able to block files at their ingress and egress points, that's obviously an easy gateway conversation. If they're starting to talk about the ability to monitor files across their network and be able to do file analysis and file trajectory between machines, that's definitely going to be more of a network conversation. But if a customer starts talking about being able to control outbreaks, hunt for hidden malware, or understand the root cause of an infection, that's definitely going to be an endpoint conversation. So when we're qualifying an opportunity, we need to understand what AMP does and what AMP doesn't do. First and foremost, we're a complementary solution. We're complementary to the email and web technologies in the content security space. We're complementary to the next gen IPS within the SourceFire catalog. And we're complementary to the existing endpoint security products that are out there. So if a customer already has an antivirus solution on their machines, we're not going to replace it. We're actually going to make it look better by giving them more visibility. Because the endpoint solution is cloud-based, we're going to be protecting systems both inside the network and when they're out on the road. As a matter of fact, a lot of customers will talk about their need for visibility when machines leave their networks. Because of the cloud-based system, we can change a policy or we can remediate malware even when that system is not on our premises. And that really brings up the fact that we can remediate these issues really in seconds as opposed to days or even weeks. So again, here's another way of looking at the different solutions that we offer. If our customers are just wanting to protect their ingress and egress points, we're probably gonna stick with the gateway solution, or especially if they're already an ESA or WSA customer. If the customer is looking for a wider visibility as far as what's going on their network and want to the ability to layer defenses and correlate events between a network attack and the actual payload, then we'll probably talk about the network solution with the next gen IPS, next gen firewall. But of course, if we're talking with folks who are looking for that granular visibility and the ability to protect your mobile and your remote devices, we're definitely going to be talking about the endpoint piece. So who are we going to be talking to about this solution? At the C level, we know that they care about malware. They know it's bad. They're worried about a breach happening, and most likely they're worried about that breach because they're worried for their job. They're not sure what the right solution is. They've probably read some stuff online or what have you. And in this case, we want to be able to position the entire portfolio, the entire solution. The reason for that is that it's going to give them the most effective total cost of ownership to address malware and the malware lifecycle. When we're talking to the network security folks, they just want the malware to stop on the network, and in a lot of cases, you may run into some folks who don't fully get the file-based side of malware. They understand the exploits and the ways that the malware authors or the bad actors are going to try and get into the network, but they don't fully grasp the ways that files are going to affect the endpoints. In this case, we're probably going to stick with the AMP for the gateways, AMP for the network, because we want to bring blocking into the network, and we want to bring that correlation on the network side with those attacks that they understand. Now, these are the guys that I talk to, the IT security folks. These folks are so busy that they don't have time to eat lunch, right? It's the guy running down the hall with the sandwich in one hand and the laptop in the other because he's wearing too many hats. He's responsible, or she is responsible, for stopping attacks, and they need that visibility into what's going on with their environment. So they need that full control for the malware lifecycle, both across the network and at the endpoint level. And so these are the folks that we're going to talk about AMP for network and AMP for endpoint, because they really are going to latch on to that ability to correlate that data together and report on what's going on while taking action as well. As a subset of that group, or even in smaller organizations, it may even be the same people, but the incident response folks, these are the guys who are trying to go through that eye chart that I showed you a few slides ago. And so it's their job to find the malware, clean it up, and figure out what happened. By being able to go in and see the file relationships on the endpoint, we're actually providing value so that they can get back to that 0 hour malware, right? So being able to block that dropper that came into the network, it essentially cutting their workload, or cutting the amount of time that they have to spend on a remediation, but more importantly, cutting out the reinfections that are sucking up so much of their time. So when we're trying to figure out if we've got an opportunity, I like to start with, do you believe that you have malware in your organizations? And this is really going to break customers down into two groups. There's the group that believes that they have these silver bullet solutions that are going to protect them and never let malware in. And then there's the folks who are, I would say, a little bit more realistic and are going to acknowledge, yes, we've got a problem. That first group of folks are going to be pretty hard to convert, so you can make your own decisions whether it's worth taking that conversation forward. But that second group of folks, if they're acknowledging that they've got malware in their organization, one of the first things I like to find out is how much do they care about that. Is it something that they need to check a box, or is it something that is mission critical that they need to deal with? So I'll ask them things like, how do you respond to it today? We talked about that a little bit. Is it difficult to track down? Are you confident that you have it all? What about repeat infections? All these questions are going to help that customer figure out that they've got pain within the environment. And of course, helping them understand that you know what value would it bring if you had immediate visibility into the scope of the threat, or how would it help you if we were able to see what actually introduced that threat, or what other threats were introduced along with the malware that was cleaned up. Many customers have to deal with their vendor in order to get remediation. So if you've got a traditional AV product, if you're looking at getting a new signature created by that vendor, the process that they have to go through is fairly time consuming. The vendor will ask for a sample of the malware. They'll then have to analyze it and QA it and build the signature and then deploy the signature. So there can be as few as hours to get that process taken care of, or it could even be days. So how valuable would it be to be able to remediate a threat immediately, as well as remediate that threat across the entire environment, whether it was at your gateways, on your network, or just at the endpoints. And these few questions will spawn generally a very good conversation about how the customer is doing things now, as well as how we can help them with AMP. We've talked about the people we're going to be having conversations with. We've talked about some of the topics for those conversations. Let's look at it a slightly different way and figure out how qualified an opportunity might be. If the conversation goes to being an endpoint security displacement, replacing that traditional AV software, that's not something that we want to get involved with. We're not a replacement for your AV solution. We're actually a complement to it. We make it look better, and by extension, we make the antivirus administrator look better by giving them that visibility, giving them that control. In the same vein, if the topic starts going to detection rates, this is not some place that we want to play. Not that we're not good at detecting malware, because we are, but this is similar to an AV conversation with who caught what when, and not about what we were able to see during and after that attack happened. A lot of customers these days are in what I refer to as exploration mode. They know about advanced persistent threats. They've heard the hype. They know that there's this AMP product out there. They want to find out more. I'll talk to these guys all day long, but realize that that's going to be a long-term sale. We're going to need to do a lot of education, a lot of hand-holding in order to get that across the finish line. This might be a little bit provocative, but if somebody already has FireEye in their environment, or already has some other APT solution in their environment, I want to talk to these people all day long, because all of these technologies are not just point-in-time technologies, but they're point solutions. So FireEye, as an example, has products that are specifically for your web gateway, your email gateway, and it can scan network file shares. They don't have the full breadth of detection, as well as they're just now starting to get into that endpoint space, but they're not there yet. If we're talking to a FireEye customer, we'll talk about endpoint and essentially sell them a year contract for endpoint as their trial, and as that year goes on, they can make the decision which way they want to go. Our sweet spot is really those IT security and incident response teams. These are the guys, as I mentioned before, who are dealing with malware every day. They want that visibility, they want that retrospective analysis, and they really fall into our wheelhouse. These are the folks who are going to get it, and once they start to see the product and understand what we can do, there's a very high probability of success with these folks, because they're going to really like the idea of being able to bring together both the network, the gateway, and the endpoint under the same umbrella. So why is this so revolutionary? Why is this so special? We know that malware is still getting through. We know that the attacker is resourceful, and we know that those point-in-time detections that are solely focused on detection are failing. Even the new ones. If we're going to be successful, we need an integrated response across the entire attack continuum, but also across the entire network. So your advanced malware protection needs to be pervasive in order to have that visibility and be able to have that control. SourceFire is the only solution that allows customers to figure out, where do I start? What do I do? What is the scope of the breach, and how bad is it really? Where was my entry point? Where was that patient zero? And how do I control it? How do I remediate across my entire organization? So who's our target audience? Well, frankly, it's every Cisco customer. If they're not talking to us about advanced malware protection, they're probably talking to somebody else. It's top of mind for every company that's out there. If we've got an account that is mid-range in their IPS refresh, this is a great time to start talking about advanced malware protection. If we've got opportunities that we've lost to competitors, we absolutely want to talk to those folks again, because, well, they may have gone with a solution that solves a single problem. We can even augment that and provide better visibility into their entire environment. So in summary, the way that we're analyzing the security problem is by looking at the entire attack continuum and looking at all of the things that you have to do before, during, and after an attack takes place. In order to deal with the industrialized threat, we need to look at these phases comprehensively. Before an attack, we need to understand what's going on our network and have contextual awareness and have controls in place so that we can protect our data. During an attack, we need to have best-in-class threat detection. We also need to be able to block those attacks and remediate them quickly. We all know that inevitably attacks will be successful, and there will be a need to determine the scope of the damage. We'll need to contain the event, remediate, and bring operations back to normal. We're also going to need to address a broader range of attack vectors with solutions that operate everywhere the threat can manifest itself, whether that's on the network, the endpoint, your mobile devices, or virtual environments. Finally, traditional security technologies that only operate at a point in time are only getting one shot to determine if something is bad or not. With today's threat landscape full of advanced malware and zero-day exploits, those point-in-time technologies alone simply don't work anymore. What we need is a continuous capability that's always watching, always analyzing, and can detect, contain, and remediate a threat regardless of time. So at this point, you should have a good understanding of who our target audience is, be able to identify and qualify AMP opportunities, and be audible ready with the AMP value proposition. I want to thank you for your time, and good luck on your test.